Well, it is definitely going to be one of the most important keynote addresses because it is talking about strategy in times of uncertainty. And not only for those reasons will it be one of the most important ones, because we also have Saurav Srivastav, Mr. Saurav Srivastav, who's been one of the India's leading entrepreneurs, MU investors, and institutional builders, widely acknowledged as one of the architects of the Indian IT industry and as leading the creation of a vibrant entrepreneur ecosystem in India. The Indian Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi has presented him an award for contribution to the Indian IT industry, and the President of India has awarded him the Padma Shri, one of India's highest civilian honors. He co founded and chaired key institutions of modern India focused on IT and entrepreneurship, NASCOM, Indian IT industry body. Indian Venture Capital Association, TIE Delhi NCR, the world's largest organization which is focused on entrepreneurship with 15,000 members across 14 countries. Indian Angel Network, now the world's largest angel investor group with over 150 portfolio companies. 500 plus investor members globally and operations in 8 locations, including London and Israel. Well, whatever we say about Mr. Saurav Srivastava would definitely fall short, but we're also falling short of side. So I will be now handing it over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And first of all, it's a great pleasure to address any Thai conference and certainly the Thai Global Summit. So thank you very much for inviting me. Uh, when we talk of strategy in the times of uncertainty, I doubt that we have ever had as disruptive and as challenging and as uncertain a time as we have today. And I would say in living memory, because yes, there was World War II, but if I was born after that, I suspect most of you were born after that too. And the difference is that in World War II, there were some countries impacted. There were countries that could help each other. This case, everybody is impacted. Every country, every human being. So economies have been ravaged because both supply and demand side, both engines are damaged. Huge unemployment looms. Hundreds of millions of people are going to move into poverty. So the huge uncertainties about the vaccine availability, even if we get it, how well will it work? When will it be till everybody in the world can actually get it? There's distrust of China. That's beginning to unravel the world's supply chains. And there is a sense of me first, America first, we have Atmanirbhar. So it does, I would say, extremely uncertain times, and it's a terrible time for the world. But when I focus on startups and entrepreneurs, I'm reminded of Charles Dickens' epic novel written around the French Revolution called A Tale of Two Cities. And he starts with a sentence: it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. And so, yes, it is the worst of times for the world in general, but in this audience, if I can be a bit insensitive, I would say that is probably the best time for you. And why do I say that? Because disruption hits the hardest the established players who have made massive investments in business models, infrastructure, people, and the like, and who really cannot change their strategies and turn it on a dime. Think of airlines, the investments they've made, hotels. Look at those, cinemas, sports. I mean, there are large industries that are going to get disrupted. And we've always known that as far as speed is concerned, innovation is concerned, startups can do in weeks what large companies will take months to do. So I would say right now, in these uncertain times, in this pandemic, all of you who are looking to do a startup probably have the best possible opportunity that you're going to see in this life. But comes with some riders. You have to reimagine the world. There will be a new normal, or you might call it the next normal. uh, customer behavior will change. Priorities, values, all of that will change. Because just think of yourself, think of you and me. What are our priorities today? What are we spending on? How are we consuming? What are we consuming? All of that is changing. And when you develop your strategy, you need to keep that in mind because we are not going to the old normal anytime soon. So, how should we look at strategy? So, I thought the best thing would be for me to just look at a couple of industries. So, let me share disruptions in one area. Let's say healthcare. We all know that medical treatment at home has become a reality. All the hospitals are full of COVID. So, what's happening to all the other guys who used to fall sick and fill up hospitals? Are they not falling sick? They are. They're being treated at home. Even the large hospital chains are offering packages for care at home. Startups have sprouted that are providing even intensive care, creating ICUs in your own home. Think of a time less than 5 years from now when ICU beds will comprise 80% of all hospital beds, complete reverse of today. Doctors will treat from home via laptop mobile. Robots will enter the hospital. Point of care, affordable medical devices, wearables, non invasive diagnostics, they'll come into their own. Nurses, because doctors will try and be a lot more remote, robotics, and nurses will come into the play, but they will need to talk in the vernacular. Think of what you can do in that area. I would imagine that AI's biggest impact will be in healthcare. Let me pick another area, education. Users of education, consumption on the internet doubled in just 3 months, 40 million to 80 million. So now students realize that they can look for quality teachers and education outside of their geographies. If it's virtual, why not go anywhere? Tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities, because of this, can actually come on par with tier 1 cities. Lots of opportunities. Vernacular tests, less than 1% of the population actually speaks English. Is there a market for vernacular tests? Niche coaching areas, maths, English, even coding, all of those are springing up. And so think of what will happen to the brick and mortar institutions. Harvard University, MIT. Look at how they're trying to change. All just, I mean, sorry about that. Okay, that's my breakfast arriving. So, so all of that is going to change, and there will be a huge disruption to established players. And they are beginning to reinvent themselves. They will, but it'll be a challenge, and that's your opportunity. So there are many other areas, of course, and I don't need to go through all of them, where strategies will change and where there are opportunities. For instance, we have realized that work from home works. There are large IT companies that have already made an announcement. TCS has made an announcement that a third or more of its workforce will always work from home. What impact does this have on the travel industry? The ones who created infrastructure, real estate? Look at the massive disruption. We realize that meetings are more efficient the way we are doing it now. We could never have had a TGS with so many participants, so many sessions from so many people around the world ever if it was not virtual. So we're learning what this will do. Does this impact, therefore, what is going to happen to other industries? Are there opportunities here? Reimagine the world. Agri-tech is becoming viable. This was supposed to be a CSR activity. But today, there are startups that I'm funding that are triangulating space technology, AI, data sciences, and drones to actually do in agriculture what was simply impossible to do. They are able to tell governments that if there is crop damage, how much is the damage, where is the damage, what is an assessment of what should be compensated. Think what this will do to insurance, the whole area. So there's no limit to the opportunities, but they all come with the fact that you have to reimagine the world, not adopt the strategies that were yesterday. Please do not try and extrapolate from what you did yesterday, from what others did yesterday. Look at 5 years hence, work back from it. So there's good news though. The good news is that we did a study at TI Delhi with Zinov, and we discovered that while 70% of startups were impacted and actually 15% died, overall Indian entrepreneurs proved exceedingly resilient. They diversified their product offerings, they leveraged their existing capabilities for new and adjacent offerings, the move from offline to online first models, pivoted and seized new business opportunities. And I'll give you just one example. A company incubated of IIT Kanpur that we funded, Noka Robotics, was in the solar robotics business, cleaning, waterless cleaning of solar panels. The factory got shut, lockdown. What did they do? They used the engineering talent, they pivoted. They said, we'll make ventilators. COVID product, factories were reopened, they didn't have to lay off anybody else. We set up a team of 20 people virtually from around the world, from medicine, engineering, everywhere, which mentored them. In 90 days, they had a world-class product installed at major hospitals in the world. So what has happened? They had one line of business, now they have two, and they're making money on both. Lots of companies did something similar. 3 unicorns came up in COVID times. And in 2020, we had the same number of unicorns as 2019 in India. That's how resilient we are. So we are on track for 60,000 startups and 100 unicorns by 2025. And I would point out one more thing. In March, when we did the lockdown, India made nothing by itself. We imported ventilators, we imported sanitizers, masks, you name it. Within 6 months, we import nothing. We are actually ready to export. So I would say this, that while we should, of course, as entrepreneurs, focus on all the opportunities that the folks in Silicon Valley are doing and then in Israel are doing, which are addressing the needs of the top, let's say, 1 billion. But the biggest opportunity on scale is actually if you can address the problems of the next 5 billion. Those are much bigger problems. Those are not nice to have scenarios. They're all about must have scenarios. Affordable and quality healthcare. Education without adequate schools or teachers. Increasing agricultural productivity. Increasing farmers' income. Loads of them are there. They're all fueled by technology. And that's what we have today in India. We have either created, are creating, or have access to all the best technologies in the world. And if you look at AI, ML, 5G, robotics, AR, VR, whatever, all of those, these are the ones that are used to address. I will tell you that a number of startups that are actually scaling rapidly, they've done 10x just in the last 6 to 8 months around these opportunities. These are virgin fields. You have very little competition from startups in Silicon Valley or Israel or anywhere else in the world. And now you have Atmanirbhar. And so the government is trying very hard to give a leg up to startups, whether it's financing, whether it's access to government contracts. You're not fighting with Chinese imports in some areas. So a lot of opportunities. So let me kind of shift and then finish and go into Q&A. So I would say that I don't think there's a better time. This is a time for you to take a plunge, but think before you leave. Because if you're planning a startup or doing one, recognize before you leap that the ground has shifted. But you may be in a much better place than you think. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here.
That was very enlightening and very good, Saurabh. Just question from an investor point of view. I know you've created a scenario which is watchful but optimistic for startups and entrepreneurs. As an investor, and specifically to valuation and how realistic valuations, or taking in case an example of Urban Ladder, I just wanted to see what's a strategy as investors we should be pursuing in these times and when we're looking at startups for investment.
So, one thing, Mahavir, I would say that in some ways my approach hasn't changed much. This question came up just 2 days ago. Company we're investing in. And this entrepreneur asked me because I was pushing him into a business that actually made money. And this guy just wanted to do tech. It's a service company. So he asked me, Mr. Srivastava, what's your vision for the company? Are you focused on revenues or are you focused on tech? And so let me share the answer I gave him. I said, look, I haven't understood your question. You're building a business, and let me tell you what I think is a business. A business means, and a business is real, if you're producing a product or a service that people want and are willing to pay for, and pay a price at which you can make money. If you're not doing that, you don't actually have a business. It may be in the short term, there will be SoftBank, but you know what's happened to the Vision Fund. So you can't always wait for another fool to buy you out. At the end of the day, there's gravity. If you're not making money, you don't have a business. Now, having said that, of course, if you're doing a product, there'll be a time when you're only spending on technology, there are no revenues. Even in the old days, when you were building a plant before you could produce, so therefore, for a long time, you had no revenues. It's understandable. But in a service company, if you don't engage with the market early, even in a product company, if you don't engage with the market early, you will over-engineer, you'll spend too much money, you get to the market and find people are not willing to pay you money on which you can make a profit. So many startups have shut down because of that. So my focus, Mahavir, is I have to be able to see a line of sight to this startup actually becoming a viable business. It's not about are they making revenues today? Are they making profits today? Is there a clear line of sight? The whole theory of unit economics becomes important. So you talked about Urban Ladder. We've just funded a company that's taken 5% of the money Urban Ladder took and are at half their revenues and actually are profitable. So was Urban Ladder a bad model? No. They just got carried away with what the question that this young entrepreneur asked me. Footfalls, eyeballs. We've all heard that before. Net, you don't make money, you don't have a business.
That's true. I agree. So basically, the strategy is the same, and times will improve going forward. Anything on the industries that are struggling right now? Is there a disruption that is needed in the travel, hospitality, tourism, real estate, commercial real estate business, or is that going to be a long ways away?
So the traditional way, whether it's hospitality, travel, real estate, infrastructure, that recovery is going to be a long way away. But Mahavir, there will be massive opportunities for disruption here. It cannot be done by existing players. They're too heavily invested in what they have. So I would actually encourage entrepreneurs to say, what can you do? Right? So already there are people coming up with QSRs, completely automated, for instance. right? uh, because of concern on, let's say, just buying groceries, you had normal grocery channels, but the number of internet oriented purchasing I'm doing of all kinds of greens, different types of salads, plants, whatever, all kinds of startups. And they're all giving you an experience that you wouldn't otherwise get. So there's one of them, for instance, when I order salads, they send me salads with living roots. So they say, listen, when you finish eating salad, plant the root. I mean, just think of the disruption. They're willing to send me salad in pots. I mean, there's all kinds of disruptions available. I mean, I've probably spent more on this kind of stuff in the last 2 or 3 months than I must have spent in groceries all of last year. Is there a market in any area? I think there is. And I would just
That's
say focus on the fact that we also have disruptive technologies that are coming into their own. AI is now almost becoming a plug and play, right? If you look at AR and VR, it's moving to a very different point. So although we're not quite at Star Wars, beam me down Scotty stuff, you are having examples of people actually using holograms in a way. It's not at the price point yet, but that's what we said about uh, doing virtual conferences on Cisco. Look at how cheap it is today. So uh, I think yes, lots of disruption. I mean, I would have loved to be 25 today and doing like 5 different startups. So
Yeah, no, I can almost see self check-ins and checkouts on everything to a hotel, and no human interface required. I think your disruption and your insights and optimism and re-strategizing and reworking for both startups and investors is absolutely in sync with what I feel. Thank you so much, sharing your thoughts and your words of wisdom with us. I really appreciate it. Over to you, Gunjan.
Thank you so much, Mahavir, and thank you so much, sir. Like you said, they were very optimistic, very hopeful words. I think every business person needs to hear them and love to hear that there's a brighter future waiting for us no matter what comes in. And like you said, Mr. Saurav Srivastav, it's the best of the times and it's the worst of the times. We'll be coming shortly with you for the next session.
thank you.